Hello and welcome to the World Wanderers Podcast, episode 12. I'm Ryan.
I'm Amanda, and we're your hosts.
And today we're talking about some Thai islands. Koh Phangan, Koh Tao, and Koh Phi Phi.
Yeah, that's where we went.
A 3-for-1 special.
I guess you could say that. So we had a pretty epic journey getting down to the island of Koh Phangan. For those of you who don't know, Koh Phangan is famous for the full moon party, which only happens on the full moon once a month.
Except they have a series of there's a dark moon party and a half moon party and like a pre-full moon party now.
Yeah, no, they've got a lot of parties on the island. We didn't know that at the time, so we were like, full moon party, have to be there. So we were up in Laos, and we took a bus followed by a plane, followed by an overnight train, followed by a ferry to get to the island of Koh Phangan. So needless to say, we arrived there pretty tired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had over a 24-hour journey to get there, and we only got there the day before the full moon party.
Yes, we arrived in the morning the day before the full moon party, and so we went and checked into the bungalow that we were staying at, and we had a little bit of a debate over what to do in terms of accommodation for the full moon party. The party happens on the beach called Had Rin, and then there's a few other beaches around the island that you can also stay at. And a few people had told us absolutely do not stay on Had Rin. People like loot rooms, stuff gets stolen, it's noisy, you're not going to sleep, etc., etc. So we booked to stay right near the ferry port on Thong Sala.
But the other reason for that was because the one night is so popular there, a lot of the hostels have policies. I'd say more than a lot. Almost all of the hostels have policies of minimum stays. On Had Rin, it seemed like 7 days. Minimum stay was the...
Yeah, 5 to 7 nights was sort of the norm. And we got one for what, 3 nights?
Yeah, 3 nights. But even ours, like, it wasn't especially nice, and it was a long way away. And it still had a minimum stay for during those full moon party nights.
Yeah, it's also expensive as well.
Yeah, it's kind of remarkable going from Laos, Vietnam prices to Thai island prices. It's still inexpensive relative to some other things, but it's not as cheap as most other places in Thailand.
Yeah, I mean, Thailand is definitely, I would say, the most touristy place in Southeast Asia, or of the countries that we went to. It is pretty second world in terms of development with regards to roads and infrastructure. There's a lot of, I mean, we'll talk a little bit later on, we were pretty shocked by there's a lot of resorts and stuff on the Thai islands.
Yeah, it definitely is more developed there, because I think that's kind of the first place backpackers flooded into the 80s, and then the backpackers, and then it's kind of become more mainstream for especially Australian families to go. The islands we went to, Koh Phangan, Koh Tao, and Koh Phi Phi, I think are still more backpacker based. But some of the other Thai islands, and near Phuket, there are a lot of big resorts, and Krabi as well. I think Koh Samui has quite a few resorts, and even on Koh Phangan, you have the Best Western, and I think a couple other international chains of hotels. I think what defines Koh Phangan, though, is the partying, so I think that kind of keeps some of the older tourists away.
Yeah, some of the families and whatnot don't come out as much, I guess, then.
Yeah, so we stayed on near Thong Sala, which is where the ferry drops off from the mainland. But the full moon party happens on Had Rin beach, and that's kind of where the hub of backpacker tourist stuff is, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we had a little bit of an area around us because we were near the ferry terminal. So I think we did some shopping for our colorful shirts, and we were able to get some food and stuff right by us. But on a whole, the events all take place at Had Rin.
Yeah, the main events. But I think now that it's becoming so popular, there's lots of other sub-events all over, and you can now stay at cool resorts all over the island. I think the reason the full moon party is there is because the island was so cool. I was reading that it started in 1985, and it was like an island that was really kind of unknown that people would go hang out at, and then this full moon party is just grown into this behemoth thing where it's like you could pretty much talk to anyone and they know what the full moon party is.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the biggest parties to attend, I think. And did it live up to your expectations?
I didn't really know what to expect, but it's definitely kind of like next level partying. Like it's something you don't have the chance to do. I think there was like something like 10,000 people there, which is like you can go to a concert with 10,000 people, but you don't just go to a party that has 10,000 people at it. And it's kind of, there's just a lot of craziness going on. There's people like skipping and fire ropes and like jumping over fires. And it's not really, it's like a decentralized thing. The beach is just a whole bunch of different bars, and then kind of the party is just like you're on the beach going to different bars doing different things. There's no like, it's not one thing. It's like all these other bars are having.
Yeah, and that actually happened for the nights before the party, because we showed up the day before, and then we met up with friends that we met in Vietnam. So we were with 2 Canadian girls and then an Aussie English couple. And then they had also met a South African couple. So I think there was 8 of us in total that were together.
Yeah, and it's one of the cool things about the full moon party is that it's such a feature event for people going on trips to Southeast Asia that as you're traveling around, you can meet a lot of people who are going to that eventually. So you meet people and then all kind of meet up again.
Yeah, and so that very first night, we met up with that group of people, and we met at a restaurant called Mama Schnitzel, which is pretty famous on the beach of Hadron.
Yeah, that's something we had met. One guy who had been there before, and he's like, "Oh, you've got to go to," when we were in Europe, and he told us about Mama Schnitzel, which is like this Israeli restaurant, which is quite good. We went like I think 3 times on the night of the full moon party.
Yeah, so let's get to the night of the full moon party. I mean, we didn't really do anything all day, kind of like lounged at the beach and just prepared ourselves for a night of partying and drinking. And then we made our way over to Hadron in the early evening, but didn't meet up with our group until 10 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to Mama Schnitzel, got some food, and then what happened from there? First bucket.
Yeah, so I guess like the features of the full moon party is like people generally wear a whole bunch of bright shit and like kind of paint themselves.
Yeah, and
that's
you can
like the feature number 1.
Yeah, you can paint yourself, or you can pay to get yourself painted.
And then feature number 2 is drinking out of buckets. So the buckets, we talked about them in our Bangkok episode, but the typical Thai bucket is you get a bucket, a bottle of pop, a bottle of Red Bull, and a Mickey or like a 12, 13 ounce bottle of Thai whiskey. And the prices of the buckets kind of vary by you can get like because that's the thing to do. You have probably like 100 different bucket stands, all trying to differentiate themselves with funny names, and different types of buckets. So you can get different types of liquor. The cheapest ones all have that Thai Songsim whiskey, but you can get like Smirnoff or some rums.
I think I started off with like vodka soda and Red Bull, and then eventually made my way to the Thai whiskey, Red Bull, and Coke.
Yeah, I think at one point I had one that was just the whiskey, and then instead of 1 little Red Bull and a pop, it was just 3 Red Bulls.
Yes, it's a little bit obscene. I mean, the night is a little bit blurry. It's in between like wandering the beach, not wandering, like dancing on the beach, dancing on tables at these different bars, going to Mama Schnitzel for food. You kind of just like end up running around quite a bit.
Yeah, and we were with people, and within about like 45 minutes, we kind of lost that entire group of people. Yeah,
so one of the couples ended up going to a place that's called Mushroom Mountain.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most popular things there.
Yeah, so you can go to this area and you can get these shakes, I guess like milkshakes with magic mushrooms in them. Have a whole nother Thai experience.
Yeah. So doing mushrooms is popular. And I think other drugs are pretty popular, but it's a little sketchy because apparently a lot of the drug dealers work with cops to try to get bribes out of foreigners who try to buy drugs off them.
Yeah, I think it's pretty sketchy too if you get thrown in jail in Koh Phangan.
Mm-hmm.
Do they even have a jail there? I'm sure they must. Yeah.
But yeah, because it's not one central thing, there's a lot of options of places you can go and things to do. So everyone's kind of running around. It's a little bit hard to be there with a group because people are like, oh, I want to go to this, but I want to go here. I want to go to Mushroom Mountain.
And you're like, okay, like there's 10,000 people here. Like, see you never.
Yeah.
But we ended up just kind of like dancing and running around, and we stayed up all night. So we were pretty far gone by the time the sun was rising. But I remember sitting on the beach being like, oh my God, we stayed up all night. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah. It's kind of this, it starts building up because a lot of people do come over a lot of people stay there, and that you see that in like the pre-parties, but then a lot of people also come over from other islands. For example, Koh Tao, which is where we went afterwards. A lot of people go there to scuba dive, and then you could just come over for the night of the full moon party. I think people do that from a couple other places too. So then the beach starts filling up as people come in on like boats and other things. And it kind of gets to this peak where it's just like a sea of drunk people everywhere. And then it kind of starts to dissipate, and you kind of start to see the carnage as it's starting to get light out of like people passed out, broken glass everywhere, like just
garbage everywhere.
Very similar to Pamplona in quite a few ways.
Yeah.
But it does kind of pass in a blur.
Yeah, like it's hard for me to think about being up for like 12 hours partying, and like I don't know what we did for 12 hours. Like I don't have a defined schedule of like, oh, we did this and then this. It's just a lot of like all over the place. And because we drank so much Red Bull, I think I probably had one of the worst hangovers of my life the next day.
Yeah, it's funny sitting in the bed after we got home at like 9 a.m. and then we have a bungalow that has no air conditioning. Our hearts are both pounding through our chests from all the Red Bull we drank.
It's like I'm so tired, but my like body is just like wanting to dance still. It's like I just want to go to sleep, but my body's dancing.
So for people going to the full moon party, what are your recommendations, or what are some ideas?
That's a good question. Depending on what you're looking for, like, are you looking for 7 days of partying, or are you looking for, one night of partying? Because I think that coming over from one of the other islands would be a really good option, personally. Just because I know we had such a debate between where do we stay. Like, we don't want to stay on this like crazy side of the island and not be able to sleep at all. But then we ended up staying somewhere that wasn't as nice.
Yeah, I think it would be cool to stay on Koh Tao and come over and party and then get a ferry back the next day. That said, dealing with getting on the ferry in the state we were the next day seems like a hellish thing to do. And I think Koh Phangan has a lot of other things to offer that even we didn't get to see because we were only there for a few days.
Yeah, I think if we were going to go back, I would probably stay not on Hadron, but I'd probably stay the week, try to find somewhere that's a little bit more secluded so you could go. I'd love to have done like the pre-full moon partying because we heard that that was really awesome. I would have loved to have a few more days to like relax there. Relaxing and then partying and then staying somewhere off of Hadron to kind of enjoy the other things that the island has to offer.
Yeah, but that said, it is expensive to stay there. So if you were going to book into one of the better places on Hadron for 7 days, you're going to eat it's all a sizable chunk of your budget. Not to mention all the fact you're going to be spending a lot of money on booze and perhaps other substances.
Yeah, definitely. I think it really depends on what you're looking for out of your trip, what your budget is. I loved Koh Tao though.
Yeah, and so from Koh Phangan, we proceeded directly to go to Koh Tao. Koh Tao is famous for scuba diving. That's like, if Koh Phangan is the party island, Koh Tao is the scuba diving island.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of scuba diving resorts. It's not the best scuba diving ever, but it's one of the cheapest places to get your PADI certification. So we booked in Koh Phangan, actually.
Yeah, we did. It's a pretty small island. It's only 21 square kilometers. So it's super, super tiny. And scuba diving is definitely the main thing there. I was reading on Wiki Travel a little bit earlier that it doesn't really have the backpacker crowd outside of people who are looking to scuba dive. Like, people don't really go to Koh Tao if they're not wanting to scuba dive.
Yeah.
That's definitely what it offers. And so we did our PADI certification through Crystal Dive Resort.
Yeah, and so the way most dive resorts there work is you pay one price, and that comes with your certification and your accommodation at the dive resort.
So we did 4 days of dive school, and our first day consisted of pretty much all indoor stuff.
Yeah.
We did a lot of watching videos, reading out of our PADI book, doing quizzes, and just learning the basics of diving, which was good for me because I came out of the full moon party with a really vicious cold, and I was afraid that I wasn't actually going to be able to go in the water.
Yeah, both of us were a little bit ill following the full moon festivities.
Yeah. Our dive instructor, his name was Rich. He was a guy from the UK. He was just like, oh no, just get some Tylenol cold. Like, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
This is like right after watching the video, like, absolutely do not dive if you have a cold. Do not take cold medication.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a little bit Wild Westy out there compared to someone. If you do your PADI in Australia, you have to do physical. In Thailand, it seems like it's very much hard to fail the PADI certification.
Yeah.
There's no physical. Yeah. Even if you're not doing well at the skills, they give you plenty of opportunities to do them over again.
Like, yeah, they really give you the opportunity to learn them. So our second day, we finished up our book stuff, like the textbook side of it. And then we got to go in the pool and learn about the equipment. So we got to put the equipment on, swim around in the pool with it, learn about ascent, descent, equalizing. And that was really valuable. I was excited at that point. What about you?
Yeah, I was a bit afraid to go scuba diving at first. I don't know. It's a little bit scary going underwater, relying on a tank of air strapped to your back.
Yeah, definitely.
But going through the whole process of learning was a very rewarding experience. It's something I found on our last trip to South America, finding through learning Spanish, kind of settling down in Koh Tao for a few days and learning a new skill was a really rewarding period of time. And it's something like, it was one of the best times I had in Southeast Asia, or when I look back and think about how happy I was at that point.
Yeah, I completely agree. We had a great group of people. We got to learn something new. And then for days 3 and 4, we really just spent our time in the water. So we got to do a few dives, seeing the fish, and we went to a junkyard. It was really cool.
Yeah. The PADI, doing the course, it's not like you're putting in work for later gratification. It is fun to do the PADI course. You do a lot of scuba diving. You're usually with a group of people, which is nice to get to interact with them. And it's a fun process. And I think no matter where you're going, there's almost every backpacker loop seems to have a scuba diving place. We saw that in South America, lots of people doing PADIs in Colombia, Australia. It's common to do PADI somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's a good investment, a good skill to learn if you do like to travel. A lot of people that we talked to said that they were scared, that they could never do it. I think people should really you can do those starting courses where you just do a day of it and they teach you the basic skills. Because once you're underwater, it's just so amazing.
Yeah, once you get down there and you calm down, it's a pretty spectacular experience. And if people are looking to do scuba diving certification, there are a couple options, but it seems like PADI is the number one, the one that's most recognized other place. I think SSI is the other option.
Yeah, I would definitely go with PADI over SSI.
Yeah, and if you are in Thailand, I definitely recommend going to Koh Tao. And Crystal Dive Resort was awesome.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was pretty sad after our 4 days ended. I was like, oh, I don't really want to leave here. Like, I kind of just want to stay.
Yeah, it was nice because we'd go scuba dive. It didn't take up a long portion of the day. And then the rest of the day, you just kind of ate, relaxed. You're on the beach on like a beautiful Thai island anyway. So it's not exactly like it's a bad time to do. Just relax.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so from Koh Tao, we finished up our dive training, and then we made our way back to the mainland to Krabi, stayed a night in Krabi, and then made our way over to Koh Phi, which is on the other side of Thailand.
Mm-hmm. Koh Phi is a really small island, but I think if you like picture a tropical paradise in your head, then like the pictures you're going to see of Koh Phi are like it's like kind of like a stereotypical tropical paradise.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. One thing that really surprised me about the island is that it actually had quite a bit of partying. After the full moon party and being sick in Koh Tao and doing our scuba diving, I really just wanted a place where I could relax on the beach, which we got. But at the same time, they had this whole party element that was really kind of in your face that I was really surprised about.
Yeah, well, you mean that's kind of common everywhere in Thailand.
It's true.
Lots of partying. But yeah, Koh Phi, it's interesting because it was, I think a lot of it was wiped out by that tsunami in 2006.
Yeah.
So it's been rebuilt, but it is still very, like a very backpacker oriented place.
Yeah, I mean, there is one strip that we walked down where there are a ton of like bigger resorts and more expensive places. I remember looking at the gym at one place and it was insane. So they are getting the families there, but I think kind of Krabi and Koh Samui, like you mentioned earlier, are definitely more of the resort places. These were more just nicer hotels, I think.
Yeah, and so with the activities to do in Koh Phi are, there's tours out to some beaches. The movie The Beach was filmed near there.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much like you have to go see that when you're there.
Yeah, and then scuba diving is big.
Yeah, so that's where we saw the beach. We did 2 dives with adventure divers, and we went out to the beach area and did a deep dive as well as just like a fun dive. That was a pretty cool experience, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I know. It was very good scuba diving over in Koh Phi.
What was deep diving like?
So once you do your open water, then you can kind of build on that by doing different adventure dives. So to be able to go down to 30 meters is what the deep dive was. So
yeah.
They take you down and you do a nitrogen narcosis test, which we actually both did better underwater than on the surface because we had practiced it once. And then they break an egg underwater, and the pressure down there is so much stronger that the yolk kind of sticks together and acts more like a ball.
Yeah, and so you can pass it back and forth. So we're kind of like, we had a little bit of this nitrogen fuzzy head thing going on, passing this yolk around. And I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. Like, this is so cool.
Yeah, and then the pressure kind of crushes things, and it also changes the way you see colors. A lot of colors disappear at depth. Yeah,
so we brought a bag of chips down with us as well, and it was a red bag with yellow on it, and it was completely gray, and it was shriveled up. It looked like kind of like a gray rock almost.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. So we also did a hike up to the lookout in Koh Phi, which it's hot, you're tired. I wasn't too pleased about doing it, but it was completely worth it. This is something that I would definitely add to the must-do list for Koh Phi.
Yeah, it's one of the most spectacular views, I think, in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, don't be a baby. I was being a baby for most of it and like whining and complaining that I was tired, and don't be like that because the view is completely worth it.
Yeah. And then the one other thing of note from Koh Phi for us was we went to a restaurant called Papaya, which had some of the best curry I had in Southeast Asia. We went quite a few times, and there was these cats kind of hanging around the restaurant a lot, like they go into the drink fridge and get on tables, lots of cats. And then I ended up getting like deathly ill.
We think it was from Papaya, but do you regret eating there?
No, I don't think so. I think it was good enough to.
That curry was so good. It was funny though, because you'd pull out a chair and they'd be like, "Oh no, like you can't sit there. Like there's a cat there." You're like, "What? Like I can't sit there because there's a cat there?" It's like, "Oh no, like sit somewhere where the cat's not there." It was pretty funny. It's just like by that point we've been in Southeast Asia for 6 weeks, so you kind of just normalize these things that are completely unsanitary and kind of like you would never see that in Canada.
Yeah, it's a pretty bare bones restaurant, but after being there for a while, we were very used to it. So I didn't really note that like maybe all the cats all over the restaurant probably weren't a good sign, but
you win some, you lose some. I feel like it was kind of like a win in the flavor front and a loss in the stomach front.
Yeah. Yeah, so I got sick and that kind of carried with me for probably over a week as we went back to Bangkok.
Yeah, so one thing that's really important when you're traveling somewhere like Southeast Asia or South America is to make sure that you do have traveler's diarrhea medication with you. And if you're getting the old D-bomb for more than a day, take your medication, because Ryan let it go on for 5 days.
Probably a week, until the point where there was other issues beginning to appear. So yeah, I regret not taking it earlier. There's a lot of negative information about antibiotics, and I definitely think they're not good for you, and like they're definitely used widely in situations where they're not very helpful. But traveling, and when you start to have diarrhea for over 24 hours, every time I've ever had to, I've been in a lot of situations where I've had diarrhea and thought, oh, I don't want to take antibiotics because of all this information about how they ruin your stomach. And every time I've ever taken them, I felt dramatically better within probably 12 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Take the antibiotics if you're sick for more than 24 hours. Eat a papaya. I'd still say eat a papaya.
Yeah, and I guess another thing that's popular in Koh Phi is, and all over Southeast Asia, but it seems like there especially, is getting the bamboo tattoos.
Yeah, I kind of wish I would have done that.
Do you?
A little bit. I mean, I didn't really have anything that I wanted, so I think that's a sign not to do that. But I think I probably would get something next time that I went.
And would you go back to Koh Phi?
I would go back to Koh Phi. Would you?
Yeah, definitely. Looking back on Southeast Asia, I really enjoyed the islands because we did kind of a loop around the whole thing, and the islands were right at the end. A lot of people criticize them for being super touristy, which they are. They're essentially backpacker islands with like Thai people there providing the infrastructure. And a lot of people kind of take a negative opinion of that. But that said, I had an enjoyable experience there. I don't know if going back now I would have as good a time because I'm less into partying.
Drinking and staying up all night and whatnot. Yeah, I think that if we went back to Southeast Asia, it'd definitely be a different sort of trip. But I think that there's stuff that you can find to do in everywhere, like for all different types of people. Like I think I'd love to explore the landscape a little bit more and do some hiking and...
Yeah, more trekking and hiking. One thing that I did find funny, there was a bar, I think it was called Reggae Bar. The names in Southeast Asia are always funny.
Very original.
Yeah. Reggae Bar. And then if you would kickbox with someone, you would get a free bucket.
I forgot about that. That was kind of weird.
And that's one thing I enjoy about Southeast Asia in general, is that there is more, so much in the Western world is taking responsibility away from people. And it is chaotic over there, but there are a lot of options for people to do stupid things, which is more fun sometimes. Like you wouldn't be able to get people to fight for free drinks and...
Oh, there's no way that would happen here. There's no way.
Or the full moon party never happened here either.
Yeah, no. It'd be regulated and controlled. And I mean, that just takes away some of the fun of it. It adds that element of safety, but it takes away that fun.
Yeah. So in terms of safety, I think Koh Phi and Koh Phangan especially have a reputation for robberies and people dying too. A few backpackers have died in Koh Phi and
Yeah, for sure.
have died in Koh Phangan.
I would say just, use your head. Like, don't get so drunk that you don't know who you are at the full moon party.
Very original recommendation.
Well, I mean, it's with a situation like that. It's like, even if you don't drink a lot, it's like, I'm here. I've made the trip to the full moon party. I've paid all this money. I'm going to just like live it up. That's kind of the idea around that. But it's like, you can live it up without killing yourself type thing. And it's, if you're traveling by yourself, make sure that somebody knows where you are and what you're doing and that you are with people, because people will mug you and rob you. And as a single female, I think you should probably be very cautious.
I think especially on the full moon party nights in Koh Phangan, it's, if you stay on the beach, you're usually good. But if you go into the city, it's so chaotic, and there's the amount of people that really overwhelms the resources of the place. The resources that may not even exist. But if you go into, some of the side streets and stuff, you can end up in a dangerous situation. So it's recommended that you stay with people and stay on the beach.
Mm-hmm. And just don't take very much out with you. I think we took like my old crappy camera and then a bit of money, and I don't think we had anything else on us.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a problem because there's a lot of risks that you can avoid if you're aware, but the nature of full moon party is to drain yourself of awareness by filling up with alcohol. So
you said that very well. I like that. Drain yourself of awareness by filling up with alcohol. That's what people do.
Anyways, I think that's it for the episode.
I think so too.
We'll have photos and some other information on our website, theworldwanderers.com. And if you want to give us any feedback or tell us about your experience at the full moon party, leave us a comment on the show notes for this episode 12.
Okay. Till next time.
Bye.